What does it feel like to make $500,000 a month? Most people think they know, right? Freedom, peace, maybe feeling like they're finally enough. Well, today's guest, Will Nelson, he'll tell you something totally different. And Will's not a guy who is some guru on a yacht. Will started out stuffing mailboxes at 10 years old and working in his family's pizza business. But here's what you should know is Will, his business, it prints cash now. But this particular episode, it's not about money. It's about what you can lose on the way to getting money. And most importantly, who you have to become to keep going. So if you're chasing something big and you're wondering if it'll all be worth it, lean in. You need this one. Welcome to The Price of Success, the podcast where we tell the whole truth about what it costs to build the business and life God created you for. We're here to remind you that conditions are never perfect. Success always comes with a price, and you're not the only one paying it. Let's get started. Will, from the outside looking in, man, I mean, it is so clear that you have built a business that most people dream about. And you talk very openly about bringing in, $400,000 and $500,000 months. You build $1 million campaigns for your clients. And now you've even got people who are literally copying your ad strategies, word for word, right? Which I'm sure pisses you off.
Business. Yeah.
But here's what really stands out to me, man. And here's why I wanted to have you on the podcast is it's not just the success that you've achieved. It's really the tension behind it, right? That internal battle that you share so honestly in your posts that I've seen. And man, I'm excited to dive into all these questions. And so with that, Will Nelson, welcome to The Price of Success, sir.
How we doing, everybody? Glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So this is my favorite question, man.
Okay.
I'm a huge proponent of like how we grew up in our childhood definitely shapes how we show up in the world for
100%.
quite a long time. And it's so hard to like fight against that, right? And so you've achieved a really healthy, not just a healthy income, a ridiculous income, man. And you know that.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to go back. Back because people have these preconceived ideas like, okay, I bet you Will was this and he grew up this way and that and that. And so, dude, what was life like before you even made your first dollar online?
Wow. What do I even want to go back? I mean, I think what you said is true to a certain degree. I think your childhood shapes you in a lot of different ways. From an early age on, my dad actually owned his own business, owned a pizza shop actually in the Columbus area, brick and mortar pizza shop. I remember waking up at 5 a.m., back in the day with value packs, right? And I'm flyering mailboxes as a kid.
That's
I'm
awesome.
doing whatever I could in exchange, and he's bribing me for candy, right? Hey, we're gonna, we're gonna fly our mailboxes, and I'm gonna give you some Apple-O's or something like that back in the day. And I was like, okay, this sounds great, Dad. And that's how I grew up. I mean, I grew up from an entrepreneurial background without even knowing it, and just seeing the work ethic of what it took to actually be successful. Of the day in, the day out, like the waking up at 5 a.m., the doing whatever it took to managing employees, like without even knowing, obviously my upbringing, that's what I saw on a daily basis is somebody that just created something from absolutely nothing, right? Had an idea, wanted to do this and did it. On the other side of the coin too, long story short, the business they ended up selling to somebody that screwed us over. The family was on the verge of filing for bankruptcy, so of issues of money, of all that stuff. And for me, I definitely think that shaped a lot of my ability to be successful and also to be able to navigate some of the challenges and also just the relationship that every entrepreneur has with money, right? That even when you see on the outside of the success, a lot of the things that entrepreneur struggles with is having enough or being enough or getting enough. That the stripe income or the whatever, the needle keeps on moving to the next level, to the next level, the next level. And it's hard for people to understand until you're actually there, right? So it's like, man, if I could make $100,000 a month, I'd be happy, or I'd be happy when I'd be making this. And then they hit that goal and then they realize that the needle moves again, and the needle moves again,
Mm.
and the needle moves again. So the point that I'm trying to get at is that I definitely think our childhood shapes us in some degree as far as our entrepreneurial journey, but it also teaches us a lot of lessons of what to do and what not to do. And I think a lot of those things I've been able to apply to where I'm at today. And even though all those things had happened in the past, they also taught me that regardless of things that happened, that you could always essentially rebuild, you could always start over, you could always do this again. And I think that's lessons that I was fortunate enough to have been able to go through and learn to get me to where I am today.
Yeah. I'm interested to know about how you performed academically. And, were you an athlete? Were you good in school? Was it just like, oh, Will's the golden child? Like he's always been good at things. He naturally catches on to everything. What were you like?
It's a good question. Uh, I was good at bullshitting. I
Okay.
was good at bullshitting. That is the honest answer. If you want it, I was good. I was able to navigate, and whether that was some unintentional sales in a way,
Okay.
but I played sports, played soccer, did fairly well academically up until senior year when I was just like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
Actually, I pretty much graduated actually high school a little bit early. I only had one class my senior year. And actually, I spent my senior year getting a job. So I said, I'm pretty much done with school. I'm going to start college in a little bit. I was already taking like AP college classes. I wanted to get ahead. And at the time, too, I was like, guess what I need? I need money.
Yeah.
So I had two jobs in high school. I was working at this like a school spirit store. And then I was working back in the day at, I think, Abercrombie. Good old Abercrombie and Finch when it was back in the
Heck
day,
yeah, man.
right?
Yeah.
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 Staying at the mall. Are you ready for summer? Just spraying people with cologne. But yeah, I had two jobs. I did whatever I needed to because I was like, I need gas money. Like
Right.
my parents treated me well and did what they could, but at the end of the day, they taught me that money wasn't going to grow on trees, that I had to go get it.
Yeah.
Right. So I did that. I worked at Cold Stone Creamery, scooping
Let's
ice cream for
go,
people.
man. Did you
Right.
get one big arm?
What? Yeah, one big arm, the forearm. And you know what the
Right.
worst
Right.
part
Right.
about that job was? People love to pick on me for tips. So we used to have this jar that was a tip jar, and people would purposely pick on me and be like, I'm going to tip you guys if that kid sings. And I go,
That's
what the?
hilarious.
Right. So it just, I don't know. It taught me a lot of lessons of doing whatever I had to
Right.
make it happen. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. That's awesome. So, two jobs sounded
Yep.
like you learned a lot from your parents' entrepreneurial journey.
Yep.
I'm curious. I'm really big on labels because I grew up like I had this salutatorian brother who was like God's gift,
Yep.
like super smart, super fit, super everything, right?
Yep.
Incredible student, just super natural. Like he was tutoring kids in the neighborhood and
Yeah. Yeah.
selling creepy crawlers as a
Yeah.
kid. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like for like
Yep.
$1.
Yeah.
Total hustler. And now he's very successful. But I lived in this like little brother syndrome forever.
Yeah.
And the labels that were unintentionally put on me by my parents was like, I wasn't really going to amount to much. I'm curious, did you have positive labels put on you as a kid? Negative labels kind of in between? What do you think?
It's a good question. I'd say in between. I don't think I was meant to be anything.
Okay.
I didn't have a label of like he's gonna be something. I was in a little bit of a way a degenerate in some regard,
Hmm.
especially when it came to college and things like that. I don't think a lot of people had quote unquote high hopes for me, because I was drinking all the time. I was partying. I could bullshit my way through a lot of things. I just
Yeah.
kind of skated by. I mean, I did what I had to when it came to work and everything else, but like, I don't think there was some like big goal that I had set in a way as far as like the expectations put upon me. I think it was just one of those things that I always had a feeling like I knew I was meant for more. I just never knew what that actually was.
Hmm.
Right. Deep down, I always knew that there was something that the model of what people did or were doing didn't align with what I wanted. So go to college, that just never felt right. But at the time, we're talking about 2000, I don't know, 2005. I don't even know how long ago that was.
Yeah.
The online thing didn't even exist, right? There
Right.
was no online anything at that time. You just got a job right after college, an internship, and that's what you did until you retire. You
Yeah.
climb the corporate ladder. And for me, I just always questioned everything about that, but I could never figure out how to do anything about it because nothing really existed back in the day, right? Like the idea that I was going to do something radically different than everybody else was completely crazy because nobody done anything, right? And I didn't have anybody in my social, like besides my dad, but he had to have like an actual, retail store. And that
Yeah.
was, you open your own business. And I don't know, just everything felt like something was missing. I just didn't know what it was.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like you struggled with things per se. More so, you were like, man, where's the challenge? Kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I always, and even now, we could talk about that later, but I've
Yeah.
always felt like there's something, there's always something missing. Like, what's the next
Yeah.
thing? And I don't know if that's just the entrepreneurial bug in me,
Mhm.
but I've always felt like there's more. And it's not about the money, it's about the vision, it's about the purpose, it's about actually making a difference.
Yeah.
And to me, that's something that I've always, part of the reason I think I've had a lot of success is because of that. Like I've
Yeah.
always strived to create more impact or create more vision or actually make a difference. And as a result, the money's come of that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's always been so much quote unquote struggling as it is my continued ability to be curious about why things are the way they are that's led me to have the success that I've had.
Got it. Okay. Would you consider yourself to be a pretty like deep analytical thinker and or opposite?
No, I'd say now more so than ever.
Okay.
Not as much, but I question everything now. I mean, I'm
Okay.
always questioning why things are, why people do the way
Mm.
things they do, why people live the way the life they live. I'm always curious about why people do things,
Yeah.
because to me, things that other people do, I sometimes have a hard time understanding. So
Right.
I try to like understand from their side, I guess in a way, empathize and try to go, why are they doing what they're doing, or why is their way like this, or why is their life like this? And I think as a result of that, of just being curious, it's led me to, I think, be able to better navigate conversations and run my business, and just because I can understand people better.
So then you go to college, right?
Yep.
So you have two jobs. You're like, okay, I'm kind of questioning everything. You go to college. You mentioned, you were partying, you were kind of BSing your way through things or whatever.
Correct.
When did you actually like get out and have a real job and what did you do?
I don't even know if you call it a real job, but so senior year, I didn't have enough money to stay in on campus.
Mhm.
The company I was doing catering at the time ended up going bankrupt, so they ended up shutting down. So I had to quit catering, quit doing catering, and then I didn't have money to stay at my place on campus. So I actually had to move back home with my parents for a short time period.
Okay.
So senior year of college, I was trying to finish up my degree. Once again, I graduated early. I only had one. I think it was quarters at the time. I don't know if it was quarters. I only had one quarter, so I graduated early. Moved back with my parents and try to figure out life, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't really have any money, and I was applying for jobs on like Indeed and all that stuff. And I went to school with communications and sociology. So what the am I going to do with those degrees? Yay! Like, good job, Will. Like, kudos to you. You're so
Right.
smart.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out everything. I was actually interning at like a radio station at the time, WNCI here in Columbus, and I was doing stuff and did that for a long time. And then kind of got lucky.
Mm.
I applied at a job at a nutrition store, right? So when I moved back with my parents, I was like, I had like one of those self pep talks in the mirror of like, dude, you're a loser. You got to get your shit together, right? You're
Okay.
living with your parents. You just graduated college. You're making no more money. What are you doing about your life? So that's when I started getting back into, I was always adamant about working out, but I started to build structure and discipline and routine, started to eat like very clean, started
Mhm.
to exercise every day, started to run, started to like, read stuff, to anything I could to, better my well-being. I ended up getting my first kind of job at the time at working at like a vitamin world,
Oh yeah.
like a
Okay.
vitamin shop,
Yeah.
like same thing. And did that for a little bit and then quickly became the store manager
Let's go.
within like 2 to 3 months there. And then actually the crazy story was I got approached by a new franchise that just opened up in Columbus, and they were opening up brand new stores and franchises. And they found me kind of like a secret shopper type thing. They offered me an opportunity to open the first store in Columbus, and the rest is kind of history, because that's kind of what brought me out to California, helped me kind of really start. I mean, there's a whole nother story on that, but
Yeah.
that was kind of the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey and Bug.
So to be clear, you worked for Vitamin World, you were promoted as a manager, and
Correct.
then did you say they give you a franchise opportunity?
No. So what happened was there was a brand new franchise company that was growing really quickly. It was
Okay.
called Complete Nutrition at the time.
Mhm.
And they were opening franchises fairly quickly across the United States. And they were looking for managers in the Columbus area when they were opening their first couple stores. I was
Mhm.
just working at Vitamin World at that time. They came in, secret shopped me, and then I got offered a job
Got
at
it.
Vitamin World. I
Okay.
helped them open their first store in Columbus. We opened 3 stores in the matter of like a year and a half.
Let's go.
Became an area manager of the 3 stores. Did so well within the company. They actually did an interesting thing where essentially I could open up my own franchise through sweat equity, and
Mm.
that's how I ended up moving out to California.
Got it. Okay. Now I'm
Great. Yeah.
clear. Now I'm clear. Okay. So I want to camp out there for a hot second. Here's
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
I worked for GNC,
Okay.
and there was a point in time where I was really trying to apply myself in like
Yep.
the deepest way. And I remember like there was not a lot of traffic coming through.
Yep.
And instead of just kind of scrolling my phone in between people, I was like rehearsing, okay, if this person comes in and they do this, like I'm gonna approach them
Yep.
this way and I'm gonna do this and do that, right?
Sell the gold card.
It, right. Sell the gold card, the primary products, all the
Yeah,
things.
right.
Like how can I move someone toward that, P6 that's gonna make me $17 commission, right? So all this stuff. Okay.
Yep.
But here's what's interesting is like I realized a lot of other employees weren't doing that. And
Yep.
then reports came out, and out of 37 stores, I was like number 2 salesman consistently. I never hit number 1, but number 2 every time consistently. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, there's something I'm doing differently. Right. And
Yeah.
so for you to accomplish what you accomplished, even in that season of your life, what were you doing differently that set you apart?
For me, it was about the carrot. So, what's next? So, for everything in my life and business, there was always like I could see what the next thing was. So, for me, when I opened the first franchise, it was the goal that was you're going to open the first store, then you're going to manage 3 stores. Then, when I managed the 3 stores, it was like, we're going to give you an opportunity to own your own store out in California. Then, when I was owning my own store out in California, I got to participate in owning a store in Colorado and a store in Nebraska. And then I
Mhm.
did that. Then there was always just like the next thing. So for me, I've never necessarily been complete. I've always just saw a vision of what the next step is,
Mhm.
and then known what I needed to do exactly to get there. And I think for a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, they can't see that. So what happens is they essentially become complacent with what they do, and it's why people get fired and don't like their jobs, is because
Right.
they can't see that next step because it's not defined for them. It's like, yeah, maybe we'll give you a raise when this happens, or maybe, in 6 months or years you can get. For me, that's why I've never done that route or gone that way, is because I never saw what that natural step is. Right.
Hmm.
So in every decision that I've made in every business that I've ever had, I've always been able to kind of see what is that the top of the mountain in a way,
Yeah.
in any capacity, and then when I've outgrown that mountain, that's when I've kind of changed or pivoted or done something different.
It's good. It's interesting that you've accomplished what you've accomplished, and you've been like, "Oh, and then I, got picked to do this store and that store, and they saw me as a secret shopper, and they liked what I did, so I had these opportunities." But, like, I'm trying to get to the nitty-gritty of, like, there's a dude who's literally has an earbud in, and he's like, "Bro, I'm just working here, and, like, I wanna grow, but I don't know what's gonna set me apart for a secret
I
shopper to
think
be like, 'You're awesome.'"
I think it's just being authentic, I mean, that's why
Mhm.
if you wanna talk about why my business has done so well recently, it's everybody's trying to be somebody they're not
Yeah,
because
man.
of social media. Everybody thinks that they have to be a certain persona, certain characteristics, certain character. They have to play a certain role. They have to say certain things. They have to do things according to what everybody else is going to do. Why? I mean, now more than ever, when you want to talk about AI, you want to talk about, systems and technology, and everybody's trying to delegate things with technology. At its core, we're just human beings. And what we crave more than anything is authenticity and connection.
Amen.
And that is the one thing that so many people just miss. Like,
Mm.
even with today's technology, and I'm guilty of this more so than anybody, I'm on my phone, a lot, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes just you having a simple conversation with somebody and disconnecting for the moment of just like being there and being present and actually giving a shit, excuse my language,
Yeah.
is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And, when I learned that early on is like, hey, somebody comes in, just have a conversation with them, be a human being, like stop trying to sell them something and just talk to them. There's not like a secret script. There's not like a whatever. It's just like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, did you like, what are you up to today? You got Panera, man. I love Panera. I just got a bagel from there in 2 days. Like, I love that you chocolate chip or blue. Next thing you
Mhm.
know, you're just shooting the stuff and they're putting stuff on the counter and
Yeah.
it's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I've always kind of had that though. And I think that's a skill set or gift that I've had. And I've not necessarily realized that, but I've always been able to kind of insert myself in a way to kind of talk to anybody and everybody. Like if we go back in high school, even though I played sports, I was the friend that was friends with everybody. I also did theater, right? So I
Uh,
was kind of all over the board with like who I hung out with because I kind
yeah.
of was like, I could just fit anybody. There was no, this is who I am or this is who I am. There was no labels. It's just, I'm just some dude,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm. That's good though. That's really cool. Because I've learned that lesson too, and it took me a long time to learn it because, like I
Yeah.
said, in my GNC days, I was like, okay, like this person walks in, they say this, I have to do this. But here's the thing, and you may not be an introvert like me. Are you an introvert?
No.
Okay, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
And introverts, we have to prepare for
Yeah.
things. Like before you get on this interview, I'm like, okay, Will's gonna hop on. Like, what should I say first? Like, it sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks to have to be like that.
Yeah.
But I think introversion comes from a place of like you're overthinking, and then maybe you lack confidence in specific areas or whatever. Whereas extroverts are like all over the place. And there are times where I can be extroverted, when I'm
Correct.
in my element.
Yep.
But it's hard as an introvert because
Yep.
you're like, well, daggone it. What if I just don't have that natural ability? So you feel like you have to framework everything. Like, okay, well,
Correct.
Will said Panera and how so they're finding common ground. Okay, check. Right. So you
Yeah.
just like
Right. Yeah. I started
break
going through the list.
everything down. Man, it's
Yeah.
so tough.
The biggest thing that I would tell an introvert, if I was having a conversation with them about how to be more outgoing or more charismatic or whatever, is usually it's because there's an expectation or just a fear of what if,
Sure.
right? So if you can really tackle that of not necessarily having a fear of the conversation or it having a specific outcome, right? Like if I say this is what's supposed to happen. If you can go into it with no intentions and no and just be, then that in itself is a pretty powerful thing. Because
Yeah.
I would say most introverts are going to overthink things because they're expecting a certain result or expecting a certain way or whatever it is. That usually for them it's like just find something that they're interested in or find a common ground that you can talk about. Because it's not that introverts are, I don't want to say this, there's just certain things that they don't feel comfortable talking about. So if I can find something that's more common to you or that you as an introvert can find in common with them, then you might be more inclined to be open or have that conversation. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It does. It
Yeah.
absolutely does. There's something very deep in we introverts.
Yeah.
And like I said, it for me it comes from childhood labels, being a
Yeah.
crazy stutterer that I had to overcome all that stuff and
Yep.
everything. Um, and even to this day, like I have this quote on the front of my phone. It says, Kobe's level of confidence came from knowing he'd done all he could to prepare. It taught him that anytime he was nervous, it meant he didn't prepare enough. And so for me, I'm always like preparation, baby. Like as long as I'm prepared, I'm not going to be nervous, even if I know my stuff. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
But
know.
I don't, here's what I would tell anybody that's listening to this. You can only be prepared for what you know. So there's a
Yes.
lot of things that you don't know, especially when it comes to business. The reason why we've, again, been, because I just do. I think
Mhm.
action over preparation more than anything. My ability to do
You're a
things with
sprinter.
speed. What?
You're a sprinter.
I'm a doer.
Yeah.
I'm a doer, I'm a builder. When I think about things, I just do things and then I figure it out later. Way too many
Mhm.
people are in their feelings or their thoughts to actually implement things or do things because they have an expectation of what's supposed to happen. When things don't meet that expectation, then they start to second guess everything about it. For me, I
Mhm.
understand that there's going to be challenges, and I appreciate those challenges because it helps me get better. And the only way to know that is by doing it. So
Yeah.
for me, in everything I do, in every business that I built, every time I've changed, I just do it. I figure it out. Cool, it didn't work. Then it is what it is.
Right.
And
Right.
again, maybe that's a skill set. Maybe that's a training that I've just
Yeah.
acquired or whatever, or trait. It's
Yeah.
just who I am.
That's funny, man. So success loves speed. We know that, you know. I had
Correct.
Daniel Woodrum on one of our podcast episodes. He co-authored the book with Craig Ballantyne, The
Yep.
Dark Side of Discipline. And success does love speed.
Yep.
It's just so funny how different we are. And this is the last thing I'll ask you on this, and we'll keep moving. But so if you were like, Chris, come speak on a stage, I'd be like, okay, I need a week.
No.
I was like, Will, come speak on a stage. Are you
Yep.
the type of guy that's like writing your notes in the Uber on the way? Like,
Am
how?
I? Give me. I
Yeah,
mean, I give me some bullet points. Right? If you give me some
yeah,
bullet points in like a slide deck, I'd be fine.
that's awesome.
Like just
That's
throw a
awesome.
slide deck on there and some bullet points, and I'll be able to wing it.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah.
I've gotten better over the years at just being able to like I can't think of the word for some reason, but improvise. Yeah, improvise
Yeah.
for sure. But it is very interesting. You can tell, like, you're a lot like my brother. My brother's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
doer, he's a sprinter, he's a mover, he goes, 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 goes. And at times I'm like, bro, are you just blindfolded and like
Yeah.
spinning around in circles shooting a freaking gun? Like, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
anyway, that's funny, man. That really helps me kind of understand who you are a little bit better and in the audience. So I'm glad we're able to dive into that. Um, let's talk about let's talk about um motivation. All right. So
Yeah.
Patrick Bet-David has this great book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, right?
Okay.
And one of the ones that I think sticks out for most for people is it's like, who are you trying to prove wrong as a result of your success? So is it that exists, or is there a different enemy for you that just continues to keep you motivated?
So two things.
Yeah.
One, I think it's always proving everybody wrong. It's not anybody, but it's everybody. It's I love to win. And if you talk about like a Kobe mindset or something like that, it's just like I love the game. So it's not
Mm.
even about proving people wrong as it is I just like to win that much more.
Yeah.
Also, I can't stand mediocrity. It's something that at
Mhm.
my core bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
And I mediocrity, complacency, status quo, because of my thought process and then reasoning of why things are, I I want to I want to push the bar. I want to challenge things of why it is what it is. So for me, it's not even proving anything wrong. It's proving myself wrong in a way that I can do this, right? Like there's another thing, right? It's like, hey, Will, you never thought you could do this, and then you did it, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like a constant game within myself of trying to up level in a way. For me, I look at the entirety of life in a way as a game that, yeah, there's certain vanity metrics that people define as winning, which on the outside you can reach those. That doesn't mean you're going to be happy. I want to be very clear with that. But I do think that in society, if we look at like what is winning or what is the standard or stuff like that, there is benchmarks and it does feel
Mhm.
good to hit those, right? So
Mhm.
when you say success, what does success mean to you? Because it's going to mean something completely different than everybody else. So I definitely think there's some vanity metrics of hitting these markers in a way, as far
Sure.
as like, I'm going to be very real about vanity, about what you look like, about how you take care of yourself, about money, about, your partner, about like, there is that though. If you think those don't exist, you're crazy.
Right.
So I definitely think those are always going to be there. But really, when I look at the business as a whole, it's not about proving anybody else wrong. It's about proving myself right.
Hmm. That's an
Yeah.
interesting mindset, man, because I see people like that who win. They're just like, I want to win. I will be a monster, right? And they're just like, rah. Then there's
Yeah.
some who are just like, I don't have that crazy competitive drive. Like, I'm not mediocre.
Yeah.
I'm still building a business. I'm still doing the thing, but I just wish I was more like, I want to be a killer. You know what I mean? But I'm not.
What
what would you
I
say to
think
a guy
it
like that?
I think it depends on what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So the problem with a lot of people of why they don't have that killer instinct is because they don't really have a North Star of what they're trying to create or trying to build. More times than not, they're doing it because of the monetary outcome than they are anything else. And whether they
Yeah.
want to admit it or not, that's the truth. Is that
Sure.
they're doing it because it brings revenue in for them. More times than not, I wrote a post about this the other day. Most people don't even burn out; they just essentially get bored. So
Mhm.
it's not about actually burning out. It's that they've reached a goal that they didn't know they would hit. Once they've reached it, then they're kind of burnt out because what they built, they necessarily either A, don't enjoy, or
Mhm.
B, they're not challenged enough to build something else or create something different. So it's the motivation for most people that are successful diminishes because they've set the bar too low and they've hit that bar. That they haven't challenged
Mm.
themselves enough to step into a new identity or play at a bigger level. And even some of the clients that I have, some of these clients as fitness coaches and business coaches are doing, 30K a month or 50K a month, and they've never hit that before. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, great. Well, what's next? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, what do you mean? You haven't thought, and they just never thought about that because they didn't even think it was possible to hit that goal. Right.
Right.
So some of these people, like I just had a client he did like $350,000 cash collected this month. Okay. It's April 23rd and he's done $350,000 cash collected. 6 months ago, he was making 5K. And
Whoa.
I didn't necessarily have like a secret tactic or strategy. Yes, I helped him with a lot of that, but it
Mhm.
was my continued desire or push to challenge him of why he's doing what he's doing. And once we actually got rid of I'll hit this income level and I'll be happy, and we started to focus on the vision of what he's trying to create, and more importantly, who he's trying to help, the vision grew. And as a result of that, the money came in as well.
That's very powerful insight because it helps kind of tee up the rest of the conversation here. And
Yep.
that's the tension behind the success, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, I got a guy making 5K now. I just did 350,000 cash collected, which
Yeah.
is amazing, but like
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. Like if you want to run ads online, call Will,
Yeah.
right? He's
Yeah.
he's the guy. But also, I want to go back to when you started making real money. Like, were you just shooting for the money? And then once you reached it, what was the disappointment?
Oh, that's happened multiple times. It's not
Okay.
like it's happened once.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's different stages. So my first real taste of money, I mean, with the nutrition stores, I was making like 60 to 80K a year, nothing
Yeah.
crazy. Um, when I was doing personal training, I still remember having my first, I think it was like $100,000 a year. Like that was a
Mhm.
benchmark. I think for a lot of people, it was like when I make 100K a year, that
Yep.
was like
Same.
it.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, right. Then it went to 250 a year,
Mhm.
right. And then I was like, okay. And then it kept on going and going and going and going and going. And the belief is that, I wrote this statement years ago and it's just like, I'll be happy when, right? Insert the blank. I'll be happy when. And that needle, if it's about the monetary thing, it always moves. And happiness, people have to understand, isn't a destination. It's a state of emotion. So to believe that once you reach a certain income level or create a certain type of business that you'll be happy is completely ridiculous
Wow.
because you can't always be in a state of happiness, right? No matter how much money you make, no matter how great your life is, it's not a constant. But for me, I definitely had the belief that I was going to feel a certain way when I hit that income. And part of that thing that I've struggled with is I've never been a materialistic person in a way. So
Mhm.
for me, the money never meant anything besides a number in my bank account. Yes, it
Right.
gave me more options and yes, it gave me more freedom to be able to do things. But fortunately for me, I love what I do and I love the business that I've created. So most of my time and energy isn't built to have other things or to have a different life. It's to do more of the same of what I'm doing and be more inclined to work with the people that I actually want to work with. So
Yeah.
as a result of me making more money, I can be more selective with who I work with and what I do now without necessarily having the stress of needing to be somebody or needing to hit a certain income level because
Right.
the money doesn't mean anything to me. Like I made a video, Chris, the other day that I thought was funny. I was posting like how much money we've done this month, and I have a Mazda. Like I just don't, I
You're
don't
like
know.
Kawhi
So
Leonard,
everybody's like,
dude.
what?
Have you heard Kawhi Leonard? He's worth like $250 million and he drives like some old beater.
I mean, you talk about the Hormozy beater. You know, he had like $1 million. He
Right.
talks about that pretty out, right?
Yeah.
It's because the material things don't make a man, you know. And if
Yeah.
you're trying to get those, you'll be happy for probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Especially
Yeah.
like the cars. Like that's, you know, everybody's like, oh, this Lamborghini. And you drive it for 2 months, and then you realize that it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that's so good, man. Seriously, thank you for sharing that perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. The question I have now, obviously, is
Yeah.
like, what did you expect monetary success to fix that it did not?
Wow. Fix. When it comes to thinking it would fix, I think I would feel a sense of peace of accomplishment that I made it moment,
You're looking for peace. Okay.
right? I think it is
Mhm.
looking for peace. Uh, and it's that moment of like, it's the pinnacle. So think about this. If I think about an athlete, what does an NFL player ultimately want to do?
He wants to get to the Hall of Fame.
Wants to get to the Hall of Fame. He wants to win a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
right? Then he wins the Super Bowl. Then what? Wants to win
They're
another
empty.
Super Bowl,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Or win
Yeah.
MVP or whatever it is. So there's always like a next thing. I think that you're expecting a certain outcome or to check off a certain box, but then once you do it, you realize that it's just it means absolutely nothing if you don't really understand why you're doing it. And if you're
Right.
doing it for the destination, then again, you're never going to be happy because there's always just going to be another thing, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's always going to be a person that's more successful than you, that's making more money than you, that's in better shape than you, that just that's it. And if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses versus focusing on just yourself, then again, you're never going to be happy.
Yeah. Dude. You've said in your post before, I've tried to out earn emptiness. What
Oh,
made you
yeah.
realize that it wasn't working?
Getting there.
Hmm.
That's probably the toughest lesson for an entrepreneur is that I always had the belief because occasionally I would read posts that were very similar to what I've written as of lately.
Mhm.
And I would be like, bullshit.
Right.
You're making all the money. It doesn't. And then you get there. And then there's nothing.
What?
You know, it's like you built this party for yourself and nobody's there but you.
Dude, that's crazy. Do you think that, okay, real moment,
Mm.
you don't get a lot of engagement on Facebook, but
No.
I would genuinely, bro, if you said, I'm going to stop posting and you need to pay me $5 a month to read my post, I'd pay it. I'd pay 10,
Thank
I'd
you.
pay 15. Dude, your posts are absolute fire. And I'm not just saying
Appreciate it.
that. Like, they're
Yeah.
super freaking good. And that's why I reached out to you. I was like, bro.
Let's talk about that because that's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting about social media and engagement. Everybody looks at social media and goes, well, I'm in it for the likes. I'm in it for the comments. I'm in it for the shares. I'm in it for the vanity metrics.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, Chris? My best content gets the least amount of engagement. So what
100%.
happens,
Yeah.
right? What happens is
I've
nobody
seen
likes
that.
to associate themselves with actual meaningful posts. So if I
Mm.
write about, like, let's say mental health or write about struggling or burnout or entrepreneurship or relationship issues, people will applaud. What's like, everybody will applaud in silence,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants to associate themselves with that,
Yeah.
right? So if you think about anything, people don't like it or don't share it because it makes them feel a certain way about themselves, that I'm associating, that I'm agreeing with what Will's posting. So every day I have messages from people. Hey, Will, I love what you're doing. You know, your posts are, but nobody comments. Nobody
Dude, that's
engages. But
crazy.
every day I get 30 to 50 messages from other 7-figure, 8-figure coaches, people, business owners. What keep on doing what you're doing. Right. So it's what people say and do in silence. It's you, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people when they're starting out, is
Mhm.
they feel like nobody's watching, but everybody is.
Dude, that is beyond fascinating. Because how many people do you have on Facebook?
I don't know.
Like five,
Yeah, like
seven
yeah, probably
thousand?
5,000. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay. And your posts are getting like 1 to 5, 6
Yeah,
likes
no
when you
likes, yeah,
talk about something serious or
yeah,
none. And I
yeah,
read them and oh my gosh, this is amazing. And
yeah.
like, I just
So,
freaking heart them
Chris,
all.
let me ask you a question,
Yeah,
right? Let's flip it back on you. Why have you
sure.
never engaged on any of those comments or posts?
What are you talking about?
I
I've
don't
engaged
know.
on a ton of yours. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
I'm trying to pay attention to a million
Yeah,
things.
no,
So,
no, no.
okay.
So here's the thing about me that's interesting is I never like a post. I only love it because if it's worthy of anything, I already loved it, right? So
That's fair.
that that's kind of my rule. So
Okay.
I've gone through and like read your stuff. And
Okay.
I've been like, dude, so good. And that one night that I reached out to you, I was like, dude, you got to be on the podcast. I read that post. I was like, oh my gosh, man, like this is just freaking fire. Like it's so good because you're
For
sharing
sure.
that side. And the
Yeah.
reason it's so important to talk about that is because so someone would listen to this and be like, well, now I'm just freaking discouraged. Will, like, why the
Yeah.
freak should I do this? So let's talk about the person you've become and how the money is a byproduct.
I think everybody's got a choice at the end of the day. And the choice is, are you comfortable being who you are today, or are you trying to build for the future you? And most people aren't willing to do, I don't want to say the work, but aren't ready to step into that newer version of your identity. And I think it's hard for people, partly because of their friends or family, everybody in their social circle. You have to understand when you're trying to build something big or build something great, in some capacity, you're killing your old identity. You're killing a version of you that was to create what is going to be. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially when it comes to your social circle, because they know you as Chris, this is who he is. So for me, when I started to be quote unquote, in a way, more entrepreneurial, more focused on myself, a lot of my friends didn't align with me anymore. Right. They're like, you
Mhm.
change, you're different, all this other stuff. And I am, right. I was different. I am different because who I was is not who I am today. And that's hard for a lot of people to be able to do. And that's why a lot of people get discouraged, is because they're not ready to step into a newer identity of who they need to be in that moment. And
Yeah.
there's limiting beliefs that keep them stuck of, well, of what people are going to think of me. And they are going to think of you. And you have to be okay with that. Because if you're not ready to do that, then you're always going to stay in just the identity that you've created of who you are today. Right. And a lot of people, it is, I'm not going to say it's not discouraging. I mean, anything worthwhile is going to be challenging. And you're going to have times where you do feel discouraged. There's going to be times that you want to quit. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they're ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, anything great requires effort. I just don't get that. I mean, to me, it's so obvious, but a lot of people just aren't willing to do the work, and they wonder why they don't get the reward. The other thing too, Chris, is that social media is a highlight reel.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody sees the day in, day outs, right? Nobody sees all the work. Nobody sees the failures. And again, if more successful entrepreneurs, which I think we are seeing it a little bit more so now than we were, are willing to talk about their journey, their struggles, their hardships, their failures, I think that in itself would give more people hope than the opposite side, which is, look how successful I am. Look at
Yeah.
the house, look at the Lamborghini, look at the cars, look at all that stuff. If more people showed you the failures, I think more people would be willing to bet on themselves and at least try,
Yeah.
because they would see a version of themselves somewhere in that story. And that's my goal with my content and everything that I'm doing as of lately, is I want to show people not all the glamorous side, but also all the challenges, all the struggles, all the things that I still deal with, at the end of the day. I'm human just like anybody else, and I have my own internal things or whatever that I need to deal with. And the more open that I am about it, my hope is that somehow somebody can watch it or read it or listen to it, and they go, okay, he gets me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what this podcast is about. Cause I'll bring people on and I'll be like, you know how I plan my podcasts? I open up a doc and I go through
Okay.
people's social media and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring them on the show in the same way with only the amount of information I would have from social media. And that's
Yeah.
what's so fascinating about you is like you share those hard things. You share the things in your head. Like, oh man, there are times where I'm not present with my family, and there are times
Yeah.
when I'm like just working myself to the bone and I realize like, what the freak am I doing? Right. You share all those things. So I was able to be like, oh, dude, this is going to be depth. But other times I got to yank it out of people.
Because it's
Yeah.
what people want. I mean, again, it's
Hmm.
everything is, I've always authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. Like
Right.
it's harder to be somebody you're not than somebody you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody thinks that, again, that you have to be a certain person. And, especially when it comes to the online space, everybody is like, how do I be different? You already are different. That's what people don't get. They
Right.
think they need to create something that is so unique to the marketplace when it comes to business or coaching or anything. But people are buying from people they know, like, and trust. And the one thing that nobody can be is you. And that's something that I really try to hone in with everybody is that it's not about the tactics, it's not about the strategy, it's about who you are as a person.
Hmm. Yes, dude. That's so good, man. Dude, there's so much gold in your story. It's so
Yeah.
good, man. You're killing it right now. I really, really
Appreciate it.
appreciate this. Yeah. Um, you talk about how you build a business that's based on ads so others aren't burning out, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But what I'm perceiving, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that you're a little bored yourself. So
A little
are
bit.
you bored? And what do you think you've outgrown?
I've just because I like to win, there's always the next thing,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
that's just my I know that about me. I'm self-aware in that regard, right? I do a lot of woo-woo stuff
Yeah.
that most people don't do. I do like all kinds of like meditation, breath work stuff. I'm
Hmm.
very self-aware in a lot of those things. Um, I like to in kind of like a childlike way. I like to build and I like
Hmm.
to create. So it's like you giving me Legos and saying, go build something really cool. And I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
So for me, I've built the Lego thing, right? I
Hmm.
built the I don't know, the Star Wars ship, right?
The Millennium
And it's
Falcon,
like,
bro.
yeah. So then Lego's like, hey, now go build this. So for me, the one thing I have to be careful about is I have ideas all the time, right? Of what I
Mhm.
could do, what I could build. Like I already built a self-development program for men that it's just there, right?
Yeah.
As far as men, like, but and there's a million things I could do. It's just staying in the lane that I am right now and continuing to fine tune this, continuing to create more impact, continuing to help more people, and doing that. But I'm always looking. I'm not going to say I'm not as far as the next thing. It's not that
Yeah.
there's anything wrong, it's just that there's always something that I could be building better, greater, creating more impact.
Yeah.
For me, I always think it's about impact, that what I'm doing right now is helping a ton of people, but there's more people that I could be helping. Like, I
Mhm.
almost believe that I have been blessed in a way with a skill set or gift that it's almost my responsibility to get it out there.
Yeah. So now that
Yeah.
you've achieved what you've achieved, which like, I mean, like you're bringing home like $500,000 a month?
Yeah, I think we're like, yeah, 450 this month, maybe. I gotta
Like
look.
that.
I
Okay.
don't
So is that, I mean, do you have super high margins? Do you have a big team? Like what's up with that?
team of like 6. We're at like 80 something, 85,
Gosh, bro.
82% margins or something.
Dude, that's crazy money. So like you've made more than most coaches. You made more than a lot of the business coaches. You got people stealing your ads, stealing your stuff because your crap is dialed in.
Appreciate it.
What are you actually chasing now? Do you know what you're
No,
chasing yet?
no, there is nothing. There's
Hmm.
not the next thing. I mean,
Interesting.
in the checklist of life. I have a house, I have a family, I have, kids that I'm trying to raise. I am, I have health, I'm good, I have money. I have niece, nephew, sister that I'm close. I mean, there's not a next thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be in a way. For me
Mhm.
now, it's just about enjoying everything that I built and not necessarily stressing about all the other things that people are doing.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I want to be able to create enough income and wealth to be able to provide for other people. Like I wrote a post about it the other day, and that wasn't even about me. That was a client. And he's
Mhm.
like, man, it was a great feeling yesterday, or 2 days ago. He's like, I went to Easter, and he goes, I've made a lot of money, but he's like, I took my whole family. Like he's from New York and he's like, we took my family, took my brother's cousin, all this shit. The bill came and he goes, it was like 2K. And he goes, here's my credit card. And he goes, that was it. He goes, that moment right there was like the, yeah, I made it moment. And I go, that's
Yeah.
awesome. You know, it wasn't about like getting things. It was just about being able to do that for other people.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
to me, that's kind of where I'm at right now is like, you know, I want to be able to be successful in a way that I can do things for other people that might not be able to, you know, that are close to me. So, you know, whether that be the family, the kids, whatever it is. Like, honestly, Chris, if I was by myself as a single dude, I'd be in an apartment by myself and be fine with a laptop and be okay. You know, we just bought a bunch
Interesting.
of land. We have like 3 acres now or 4 acres. You know, if we
Mhm.
kid, like, it's not about me. It's about them having space and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't need anything.
Yeah. Dude, crazy, man. Well, what's interesting about that is like you. So Shark Tank, for instance, do you watch Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have all these sharks, and like they're worth multi, like hundreds of millions of dollars, and some of them billions.
Yeah.
But they're like still just like sharks. They're like fighting for the next thing. Where does that come from? Is it like, all right, I have an ego, and I think that the goalpost being moved that much further is going to make me happy? Or do you
It's
think
not
they've
even
come to
about
that
the,
realization too?
it's when I think it's a if you kind of take that same mindset from a
Mm-hmm.
lot of athletes and just apply it to business, it's necessarily no different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like just because an athlete has won a championship, whether it be like the NBA or the World Cup or the, you know, the Super Bowl or whatever, they still want to be better or the best,
Still going to be great. Yeah.
right? So for them, it's a game. It's not even about the money; it's about competition. There's like internal want like childlike I want to win type nature to a lot, I think, successful people that it's not even about the money, it's about the game. Like they view everything as a game,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like Monopoly. It's like here's your pieces, let's play. You know, and to me that's what I
Yeah.
think it is for a lot of these entrepreneurs, is they just like to win.
So, Nick Saban from the Alabama
Yeah.
Crimson Tide, right?
Yep.
Iconic coach. I remember when they won, Tua throws that huge Hail Mary, right? He catches in the end zone. They win the national championship over Georgia. I think that's what
Yep.
it was. And I feel like Saban walks in the middle of the field, the confetti's coming down, and like he's barely smiling.
Yeah.
Like
Because he's you know what he's doing?
why?
He's already preparing for next season.
See, okay. That's so interesting to me because you have people who are successful and like the super successful people have their head down for so long that like they never celebrate it. Why is that?
So two things. One, the celebration is temporary, and I think that you do need to have the celebration, but the celebration also comes with the highs that you have to be very careful. That if your business is predicated on your emotions of the highs, then you also will probably be more susceptible to the lows. So for me, cool, we did well this month. All right, it's another day, another month, like whatever it is, like, and then we just go back to the same thing as always.
Let me ask you this. So I'm a Christian and I find a lot of my perspective in the Bible. And so,
Okay.
you've shared in your post, you've even shared today that, you know, you thought all these things would make you happy. They didn't make you happy. And you're like,
Yep.
okay, something's missing. I'm looking for peace. I'm looking for fulfillment and all the things. And as a Christian, I mean, it reminds me of the book of Ecclesiastes. I don't know. Have you ever read Ecclesiastes before? It's a
Been a long
fascinating
time, sir.
book.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because it's the a man that literally, like Solomon, achieves the greatest wealth anyone could ever achieve.
Yep.
All the women, all the parties, all the
Yep.
land, all the everything, right? At the end, he goes, everything under the sun is meaningless. And so for me, as I'm trying to climb this mountain of success, whatever that looks like, which I'm trying to get clear on, for me, it's just I want to take care of my family and I want to lead them to heaven. Like that matters to
Yeah. Yeah.
me.
Yep.
That theme is super grounding for me because it keeps success in perspective for me. So I have to ask you, like, how are you coping with this tension? Are you particularly religious? Like, what is it for you that kind of keeps you grounded with perspective?
That it could be taken away at any given time. I mean, yeah, I
Mm,
definitely am religious, and I have my beliefs. I think that everything is temporarily, and if you think that everything is everlasting, then I think you again are that you just you it's not the right mindset. And I've lost things multiple times. So I mean, this isn't the first time, and we that's a whole nother podcast on another time that it can be taken away.
yeah,
So I think appreciate it and be humble about it, but just understand that what you have isn't necessarily yours, and it can be taken away at any time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing, it's like happiness isn't circumstantial, right? It's just like,
Correct.
well, shoot, I put everything into my kids and, like, God forbid, like, they all die in a car accident, it's so tragic, then who am I? Right? If I put
Right.
everything into money, who am I if I lose that? And so,
Without, yeah,
yeah, so for me, it's like, okay, that's the perspective I'm trying to have, but at the same time, I'm like, "Well, shoot, I have 6 kids and family of 8, and I'm trying to have options." Like, that's the thing for me. You're like, "What is financial success?" For me, it's options because and I'm hearing it in your story, man. It's just like, we have this core need for contribution. You know what I mean? It's like after you've achieved, you're like, "Oh, I just wanna contribute," you know?
yeah,
And so for me, I'm like, "Lord, if you're gonna bless me with money and give me the brains and the grit and the tenacity to do it, like, I really wanna make sure that I'm God honoring with it, like, I'm helping people, I'm serving people because, you know, I know that that's ultimately gonna be fulfilling at some
yeah,
level."
100%.
Yeah, so, man, dude, this is so fascinating. As we land the plane here, because again, we could get into, "Hey, Will, have you gone broke? Have you done all this
Yeah,
stuff?"
right. Yeah, it's another
And
time.
and you have, right?
Yeah,
But but what's been so interesting is talking about the tension of success. So, you know, I think you've shared on this podcast in different ways, but I'm curious with, like, that question of what this podcast represents. It's like, what is the price of success for you now that you have achieved what you've achieved?
the price of success. To me, when I look at success, the price is short-term sacrifices for long-term happiness.
Mm,
Is how I look at it. And again, happiness isn't a destination. However, it does give you more options and it does give you more choices. So I made sacrifices in my early days that most weren't willing to have or make to be able to have the life that I have now.
it's good, man. It's good. Yeah, and did you lose a lot of relationships along the way and, like,
Yeah. I
friends
mean,
and
that's part of it. You know, I
mm,
don't have as many relationships as I used to. I don't have as many of the friends that I used to. I have a couple core friends that I've stayed with, but
sure.
they've grown as well too. Right?
Mm,
So, you'll in the price of success, there'll always be people that you'll lose, whether it be your friends, your family, it just is what it is. I don't think that's the price of success. I think that's the price of growth and as a person and
yeah.
self-development more than it is quote unquote success. I think there is people that make sacrifices as a result of success, but I think in entirety, as you just grow as a person, you're going to change and you're going to lose people, just because of who you're becoming and not who you are anymore.
That's a bar, man. Dude, incredible wisdom today on this
I
stuff. Really,
try.
really, really powerful, man.
Yep.
So look, I would be remiss to not have you tell people about you and how they could learn more about you. Obviously, like follow his Facebook, guys. We'll make sure we link it. It's awesome. His posts are great. Engage, I'll be
Yeah.
engaging, of
Thanks.
course.
Drop some comments. Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
give me a follow on Facebook or find me on Instagram. It's I think Will Nelson underscore coach underscore. I'll put a link somewhere. And just engage. I mean, if there's anything I can do or answer any questions for you guys, hit me up. I'll try to message you back. I mean, I have a team that is in my messenger, so I usually don't do a lot.
Yeah.
But I'll try to get back to you if you guys do have any questions. I'm an open book. So
Awesome, dude. Awesome, Will.
cool.
Again, man, thank you
Yep.
for coming on The Price of Success, man.
Appreciate it. All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
Chris.
bro.